Hello and welcome to First Impressions. This is a show where my co-host Dash Hooper and I evaluate a new album each week with a few simple ground rules. First, must be an album we've never heard before, and that rule got thrown out today because today, just like last time, we did it for Bear versus Shark. We threw out my rules, but I made them. I can break them. So today, we are going to be looking at an album that I think was new to Dash, but to me, I had been listening to nonstop. So it's going to be the 2025 album Creatures by Jolie Laide. And we are so lucky to be joined today. Right now, we have Clint with us, and Nina is going to be joining us soon. Technical difficulties. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Thanks for listening to the record.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I will come out right now and say that it is the best album of the year. I have played it nonstop. I made sure as soon as you dropped that vinyl, I ordered it. So I have my nice green vinyl at home and
sweet.
Just love it. So
I told Ed before the show, I was like, if my book ever becomes a movie, I want this album to be the soundtrack for the movie because
oh man. Well, I hope it becomes a movie. That would be
yeah, me too. This is great. This is a great album. Like Ed said, this is my first time hearing it, and I enjoyed it. So yeah.
All right. So
nice.
Yeah, we'll talk to you, and then when Nina makes it, she can kind of add into it as well. I know she did her record release party, but I wanted to show you this. I don't know if you can see the art. That's something my daughter put together, inspired by your cover art. So
cool. I love it so much. Tell her great job.
Yeah, really I will. Yeah. She put that together for me because she's done the last two logos for us actually. Yes. When we have a band in, I have her do it, and she got all the artistic skills in the family. So I'm always like, hey, think you could put it together? And then she just looked at your cover, and I gave her some different things that I had thought of that came out of songs. So yeah, I guess since you're here right now, we can talk to you directly about this one, the album art. It is so unique and amazing. And what were your inspirations? How did you create this album art?
Well, this was, I want to say I was in about third year. It took me 5 years to complete a fine arts degree here in Calgary at Alberta University of the Arts. And I'd started doing these pretty big oil paintings. And yeah, this one, I also love taking photographs. So this painting was called The Rapture and the Return, or is called The Rapture and the Return. And yeah, it's a collage of different images, like things from my sketchbook. I remember the trailer was parked down the street from where I was living at the time. So I'd taken a photograph of that. And like most of my work is kind of dealing with like metamorphosis and like transfiguration of self and environment and things like this. And I just like supernatural weird shit too. So like painting is great. Art is great for that. It gives me a good vehicle for, exploring those themes. So this was just one in a series of paintings I was working on. I was just like, that was kind of like probably my favorite thing about being in art school is just like you're pumping out so much work and you don't have too much time to like sit and think about it. It's just like move on next. But this one I remember was, one of my favorites. It felt like kind of a little jump was made, a little leap when this one in particular happened. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it fits the vibe of the album so well. I would have thought that you actually painted it specifically for the album because it could fit that kind of that post-apocalyptic vibe that the album brings.
Well, yeah, and it was a funny thing the way we ended up on this because Jeff, the drummer, he had helped me move at one point, and this painting was in the move. He'd seen it, he'd clocked it, and somebody bought it shortly after that. So it wasn't really around. I hadn't really thought about it too much. Mm-hmm. And I still do some oil painting, but I just like, I just had so many ideas. I started working a little quicker, working with ink. making these ink drawings and then always working in a sketchbook. So enlarging some of these ink drawings, which I was super stoked at after the album was done. I was like, this is my stuff I'm working on. I'm most pumped about it. So I'm pitching one thing after another to the band. And there was one drawing and it said Creatures underneath it. And Nina was like, Creatures, I think that's the name of the record. We all agreed, but they weren't sure about that drawing. So then Jeff remembered in the move this painting, and then people just went for it right away. So, yeah.
So is it two separate paintings? Because I know the front and the back have different art, or is that was the full painting and you just kind of cut it to create the full thing?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just one single piece. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was sitting there as I'm looking at the cover and listening to the album, I was trying to pick out, okay, maybe that's Holly, maybe this is different things. So the fact that it came out and just suits the album so perfectly. I mean, you scored it. Your drummer picked right when he picked that painting.
Yeah, he's good like that. Yeah,
that's awesome. All right, so I guess I will start the questions with you, and you can tell me if there's anything that Nina wants to add when she gets in. So since this is, I'm a comic creator, I don't know if you know that, and I always start with kind of a comic kind of question. So what's the origin story of Jolie Laide?
Okay, origin story would be, I guess it was during the pandemic. Nina and Jeff started working together. Jeff was writing riffs on guitar, and he sent her one being like, hey, do you think you could write over this? And she wrote over top of that and was basically, if I'm remembering this correct, like, send me more. She was had mostly worked as a solo artist, or had strictly worked as a solo artist. So this whole concept of like collaboration in this sense was pretty new and I think exciting. And they basically wrote in a pretty short amount of time the first Jolie Laide record. And that was done. Great record. I had a couple songs in the mix on that, including Holly, and basically felt like we just hadn't got the feel quite right. I wasn't happy with my vocal takes, stuff like that. So we shelved it, and then that came around, later on this record. But that was it. So they basically were ready to go make record number 2. And myself and Morgan, who plays synth, guitar, bass, he kind of does it all, like fills in the blanks. We all went to Vancouver and we recorded this album. Not Vancouver, actually, Vancouver Island. So
okay, yeah, because I know the first album. This one has a lot more collaboration, or I would say more. It's hard to say duets, but you're vocalizing together, more harmonizing. I guess there's the word I'm looking for. Than what's in the first album. So what brought about that change to kind of make this album where you showcased your vocals as almost as much as Nina did hers?
Yeah, I think I remember early on Jeff was really like, duets, like let's have that as much as possible. And then when we were in the studio and recording, the engineer Colin Stewart was basically hearing the two of us together and saying, I want more of that. We all collectively were on board. So we just focused on that. I mean, I guess it was basically the songs we had to work with. Like, we went out there with so many songs. We had, I think, 30 to 40 songs. I can't remember. And we sat down in Morgan's apartment and we were going over the tracks. And these are old songs and some newer stuff too. And we basically whittled it down to, I don't know, maybe 20. And we ended up with 13, I think. So it was pretty good, actually, to get 13.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
Yeah. Then they didn't all make the record, but we'll still hopefully release all of them. I think we're happy with everything that how it turned out. Just,
okay.
Yeah.
So nothing you want to just throw out and forget exists then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's always good. You throw together some B-sides and 7 inches and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So let me get this. Our next question that I was going to ask was, pardon me. All right. So how was the writing process different for this album than from the previous one? I think you kind of touched on that, but I know from what I've read when I was reading a little bit of the history of the band, the first album was recorded primarily during COVID times. So how did this one differ, or did you still use that same kind of model of just sending things through the internet?
Well, I think it was pretty different in the sense that, they were, for that first record, like Nina, she never came to Calgary, I don't think, and they were just recording and sharing, doing a back and forth. Whereas this one, we all got together. We were all working, living, sleeping in one big bed. No, that's not true, but but I felt like we really got into the muck. Like we had 18 days in the studio consecutive. So it was a luxury we've never really had, to be in such a great space. You're really close to the ocean there. And just very inspiring all around. So we were putting in long days, but it never felt, we were exhausted. I think I'll speak for myself. I was exhausted, but still had more in the tank. It just felt like we got into it's like tag in, tag out kind of mentality too.
Yeah.
I'd be off by the water writing lyrics, and then people would be tracking in a song or doing whatever, guitar overdubs. And we just had a really good bit of like momentum and energy going. So very different experiences, I would say, between the two.
Yeah, very nice.
All right. So, what were the difficulties you found trying to make every song into a duet, making every song duets and harmonizing and things like that? Did you have conflicts? Were you two conflicting over things that you should do? Were you having to battle over different decisions, or was it a pretty smooth process?
It was pretty smooth. I will say, in terms of Nina, like she is a harmonizing wizard. Like she just kills it, and usually in one or two takes, just very talented in that sense, in particular, all around. But her harmonies are so unusual, and because I don't love to stay in one octave. Like as a singer, I'm kind of all over the place, but that never seemed to bother her. She just would slot right in so nicely. Yeah. And, usually for me, if it was something that I'd written, I would maybe be a little more drawn to one particular verse. So I'd want to sing that. Or I'd maybe think, oh, Nina's really suited to this, or in the narrative, this makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And, and sometimes she's writing, like in Holly, in the chorus, it was her idea to do the back and forth vocal delivery. So you always get nice surprises like that, when you collaborate with other people. I guess that's the benefit of that.
Yeah. Cause she had a listening party today for her new solo album, and she harmonizes with herself. And I'm like, wow, you wouldn't know. She's able to bleed these harmonies and sound like she's got a room full of people, and she's harmonizing with herself. So it must have been easier for her to have an actual human being to harmonize with.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been harder for to have to harmonize with me, but she's again pretty seamless, and just intuitive as a harmonizing factor.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that stood out for me through the entire album, is how well you guys meshed in every song. And I've heard albums where you can kind of tell they're having some issues, but it was seamless. And every song flowed. So I love that part where you guys were harmonizing. So great job.
Oh, that's nice to hear. I mean, I love singing with Nina. Like she is just a treat to work with. Like one of my favorite singers. Like we were actually, I would say, fans, at least me and Jeff were back in the 2000s, and kind of influenced our decision in our old band to go record with Steve Albini, which is how we met Nina. We were finished in the studio. She was coming into the studio, and that's how we initially met. But I knew Albini as more of a kind of a rock, or I knew his rock albums. Obviously, now I know he just did everything, right?
Yeah.
But when I heard the Blackened Air, I thought the instrumentation was so wide-ranging and captured so well. Really made us want to go work with Steve. And I'd even written a section in a song for Nina to sing. This is like back in 2005, but I never had the nerve to ask her or like send out an email or whatever to try and get her to do it. So it's cool that we ended up working together after all that.
Yeah, and you got the opportunity to work with Steve Albini. So how was that? How was he to work with as a producer?
He was unreal. Like he would consider himself more like, he's like, I'm an engineer, I'm not a producer, you know. And so I think his just how do I say it? It's like he's so good at capturing the sound of an instrument. It's like it's almost production unto itself, like the Steve Albini sound, if you will.
Yeah.
It's real, it's big, it's fat. And so his job was like, he wasn't telling us change this or change that. He was just making it sound as good as humanly possible. And he was a laid back dude, and like Jeff and him would be going and playing poker games after hours, and you know, he'd be chilling in the studio reading his poker book and staying out of it when he didn't need to do anything. And then you know, I got basically sick and I couldn't record the vocals, and that's why we ended up going to Chicago, which ended up being great because Electrical Audio is such a crazy studio. So to mix and record vocals there, I mean, yeah, I can remember he lit candles for me, like just solo singing down in the Studio B. And I thought, well, that's a little more, you know, romantic than I would have thought out of Steve Albini. But no, he was a treat. I wish we could have made one more with him, to be honest, or many more. But yeah.
I wish many people could have made many more with him, because, like you said, he just has such a distinct sound. And I mean, and you don't know, because you hear some producers that, you know, they put out great music, but they're just tyrants to work with, and, you know, one take after the next until the singer can't sing, and, you know, the fingers are bleeding from the guitars. And sounds like he's the complete opposite of that. And yet he created, you know, this huge amount of timeless and beautiful work that, you know, it'll never be lost. So that's the beauty of it. So you're fortunate to have got that opportunity. And yeah, that's just an amazing thing. So what band were you working with when you recorded with him?
We were playing in a band called the Cape May. Yeah. So based out of Calgary. And that was basically like, yeah, that's when we met Nina. And well, I don't know. I guess that was, I want to say that was in the spring of 2006. And then fast forward August 2006, we're rehearsing in New York to try and get it together to go tour with Nina across the States, which is what we ended up doing for a couple months. We came back to Canada, did maybe 2 weeks supporting our record, which had just come out, Glass Mountain Roads. And then we were back at it with Nina in Europe for like another 2.5 months or so. So it was a good chunk. And yeah, Europe was a blast. The States was a blast. Very different experiences, very polar opposites, but
yeah,
they were both great. Lots of good stories from this.
Yeah. So are you going to do a more extensive tour for this album?
Well, I'd like to. The summer's pretty busy for us. We're playing mostly Canadian festivals and nothing stateside right now. But the record really just came out. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where it needs to circulate. And I mean, if everybody's as pumped as you guys are, then, you know, then we get we got to get the support to go to different countries, different cities. And, you know, there's been some talk of Japan and Australia in the spring. And those are two places I haven't been, would love to go. And yeah, so see what happens. But I'd love to get on the road with these.
Yeah, I'm hoping you make it out here, and you know, don't make me have to travel to Canada to check out one of your shows. Although a good excuse to travel to Canada, so why not?
Lots of good Canadian festivals to catch us. I don't know, the closest one to you might be Calgary.
Yeah, I could probably drive that. It'd be a long drive, but
come on down. We'll put you up. Yeah, come on down.
Sounds good. All right, I like that. Okay, so this album. And I don't know if I overread it, because I'm an English lit major. I mean, I studied books and novels, and I read into everything. But this album just felt so interconnected with its themes and its characters. You have Holly, who kind of appears throughout. So when you were planning this album, did you kind of plan it as a narrative concept album, or did you just want to have more abstract cohesion with the kind of post-apocalyptic themes that you see throughout it?
Yeah, I think, how do I say it? I'm always tying threads through, like, conceptually is a way I work generally. And
Right.
I don't know if the visual art side of it, there's always motifs and things, and connecting the dots between these characters. And the character of Holly, I think we did one other interview and the guy was thinking this has got to be a concept record. And I was thinking, it's not necessarily, not every song is related to that, though Holly reappears and is a character that just kind of showed up in the writing and was like a nice placeholder for these different narratives, and to see a commonality. And then I think it was, a bit of luck that all 3 songs where I sing about someone named Holly, they all made it on the record. So a little bit of a coincidence there. And then in terms of like dystopian themes and all of that, is just like, I'm drawn to that,
Right.
I love the minor chord and bleak sort of topics like post-apocalypse. Ties in nicely. So.
Oh yeah, I love it. That's the theme of my whole comic book, is a big post-apocalyptic book. So first time I heard this, I was like, oh damn, this is my album right here. It's like Dash was saying, like, all right, you got, if you have 2 people, if Hollywood ever comes knocking, we'll come knocking your way and be like, hey, we need a soundtrack created for this thing.
Man, you know where to find me. So
you know
where to find us. Yeah.
All right. So were saying that there were some songs that didn't make the cut. I asked that one. You said there's about 3 that didn't make the cut for this one.
Yeah.
Okay. And then were there any songs you wish you had approached in a different way, where you recorded them and then you think, well, this would have been a lot better if we had, as some of your songs have electronic aspects, would you have rather turned one into an electronic song, or would you have turned an electronic one into an acoustic song? Is there one that you would have approached different, or are you happy with where everything landed?
I'm quite happy with the way everything ended up. I always feel a little greedy for that synthesizer and the drum, electronic drums that Morgan adds. So I'm always curious to hear how that might change a song, could be added to anything. And if we had more time, I would think that maybe that would have factored into the mix more, because we did do one more trip. We were pitching a song for a movie, actually. And so we recorded that, and it turned out in much the same manner as No Shape I Know, very similar kind of vibe to that. So I wouldn't say that the band wholly agrees on this, but it seems like that could be, if we make another one, more prominent. But then you don't know till you get in there and start trying things, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I hear it in my head as working so nicely and cleanly, and then you get in and you have to go a different direction and pivot, rather than bang your head against the wall and try and get the round hole into the square peg, or vice versa. Yeah.
It never works when you try.
Yes.
So you have a lot of different musical styles on this album. Was that more contribution from all the band? Did they all have different ideas of what they wanted to bring in, or was it written just kind of all with standard equipment in the beginning, and then you brought in the more electronic stuff afterward?
Yeah, I think that's fair. As far as the bare bones of the songs, like unto themselves, they're folk songs. Like, they're pretty simple arrangements in general. Something for the Thrill as an outlier, kind of a more, grungy track. I think there was some, scratching our heads wondering, okay, is this going to make it on the record? Does it make sense with everything else? And ultimately, I think everybody thought if it's a good song, it's a good song. And there was so much variety already. Kind of embraced it rather than trying to tunnel it into something more specific.
Yeah. And I love how the album does that. It kind of, you follow a certain path, and then it does a complete 180 and takes you in a different place. So it's like you go from an acoustic kind of folksy song into Stranger Things
Yeah.
sounding, synthesizer. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing because it's like, all right, the reader can't just sit and think they know what's coming their way.
It sometimes surprises me how well it works, like listening back to the record since it arrived. I mean, we, making a record, it's like I find for myself, I need to take breaks. Like the mixing process is fairly arduous, and you're at the point where you're almost sick of the songs, never want to hear them again. So then you take breaks, right? You come back, you feel refreshed, you can embrace it. So I took a good break before the record showed up, and when the vinyl got here, listening to it, yeah, I've had moments like that where I think, wow, I'm surprised those two actually work back to back.
Yeah.
But generally, yeah, I think it, the flow is okay, and variety is, I think there's an idiom about that. Variety is the something of life.
Yes.
Variety is the spice of life.
There we go.
So yeah, and I know for one thing that we talk about on this show a lot when we're evaluating other albums is bad sequencing can just crush an album, where it can be too front loaded, too back loaded, and this album just has a really good flow. And I think that's something. Did you put a lot of time into the sequencing? Did you have to play around with a lot of different orders before you found that perfect one?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's always trickier when you've got, a group of people versus, like, I've put out solo records before, and you can torment yourself and go back and forth, and then you're happy. With this, more compromise. It's part of collaboration.
Yeah.
And the engineer Colin is such an integral part. Like, his say was taken as seriously as anybody. So he had a hand in, deciding the sequence. We all got together, kind of cast our votes, then went away to our own places and pondered some more and came back. And then eventually, I can't remember whose order was the one where, like, okay, everybody listen to this. I think it's the one. And, then it was the one. So
nice. Yeah. And it's got a great flow. And there's one moment where when it got to, oh gosh, I'm going blank on second to the last song.
Old Collapser.
Yes. And I was thinking, this should have been the closer. Then the real closer comes. I'm like, all right, again, I'm no musician. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let the band do their thing because they know. So yeah, I think it's beautifully sequenced. Wow. So I love the album. I'm, definitely gonna scream from the rafters to people to listen to your stuff.
Like Ed said, we complain. I mean, we've had Joe. We talked about Joe Walsh. We talked about Marvin Gaye. We talked a lot of albums on this, and even with some of them, their sequencing was wrong. Like we've like it would have flowed a lot better. The best thing, for at least for me, one of my biggest things is you got to get me in the open and you got to get me with the close, and that's exactly what you did. Yeah, that's the whole. While I'm listening to this album, I'm like, this thing is just sequenced so great. Like every song fits and goes together perfectly. So I'm glad that you guys took time or what you did to hit that perfect sequence, because that to me starts and makes a great album. And when I first listened to it, I was like, yeah, I'm in this for the long haul. Like this is, and then of course, as I keep listening over, I've got my favorite song one of your songs is definitely in my top 10 of all-time songs now.
No shit. That's amazing, dude.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I'm glad you appreciate the sequence, because I think there's a few gray hairs established over that whole process of getting it figured out. So I'm glad I'm glad you're digging it. That's great.
You got it right. So all right. So Nina's chiming in. Yes, I will do that. So let me see. She said she got a link that didn't work. So is there any way I can send her a different one, or that you could, Clint? I don't know.
She had the same one I have, so I'll try and resend. How's that?
Yeah, that's fine. And I can see if it works. But yeah, I will definitely, Nina, I will be screaming it from the rafters. And yeah, she was, like I said, I was listening to her listening party today, and great stuff with her new album. So that kind of leads me with her. We know what's next for Nina. She's got a new album, hopefully a tour to follow. Hopefully for all of you, a tour to California, because I'd love to see you. Or I'm gonna go crash your pads in Canada, so I know the
Come see
invite's
us.
there. But
Come see us, lonely Oklahomans.
yeah,
Oh, man, I had a wild night in Norman, Oklahoma once that when we were on
Nice.
tour with Nina. So
yeah. So what's next for the band? Do you have, I know you had 3 extra songs, but do you have more material that you're kind of working on that you want to compile together for this? Or
yeah,
for another album, I should say.
there's 4 songs that are all finished with Colin, which I think, like you said, it could go like a 7-inch or a 10-inch direction, or they could be tacked on to a subsequent release. So kind of tricky to say. I think it will be interesting to like take it on the road and see how playing live, changes anything that we do or how we want to do it, because that's something we haven't really had an opportunity to do. They made that first record. It was COVID. And now we're really getting ready to play our first live show, essentially. So,
yeah. So these Canada ones will be your first shows. I know you did. There's a YouTube performance. Was that in studio that you put on there?
that was at a place in Calgary called Ill Fated Customs. So that was more of like a video shoot. So we set up, we were shooting pictures that day. Nina flew in and we did a video for Holly with a awesome person named Laura LaFrance. She's from Edmonton. She shot that in Super 8. So we did that one day. Yeah, it's really nice. And then, so we just did it live off the floor, basically had the camera crew there, and that was basically a one-off. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I love that performance, and it just makes me itch to see some more. So hopefully you make it down this way and hit Oklahoma as well. So that would be nice. So when is your next festival? So you can kind of let people know where they can see you right now.
Yeah, we start in Winnipeg, if I'm not mistaken. That is the 10th of July. We're heading out to go there. First dates, and then we head a little bit more east. We'll be playing a gig in Montreal, a gig in Toronto, festival in Ottawa, festival in Guelph, Ontario, and then heading back to do Calgary and Canmore, and one-off show in Sherwood Park. So
nice.
Yeah,
I know one of the festivals, I think you were saying that it's going to be just right in the mountains, so you have this like beautiful mountain view, all the shows going on. And
yeah, Canmore is pretty picturesque. I lived there for about a year, and it is a beautiful place.
Yeah, so you can listen to your album or listen to your songs about a crumbling world in a beautiful setting.
Yeah,
and it's sad because some of the lyrics, I think, okay, they work in the context of this world that you've created on the album, but they almost hit too real in our real world. So it's like, oh man, keep the fiction, please.
Yeah, I know that. I remember writing Old Collapser and the one line, "Have you seen enough bullets and blood? Give me some love."
Gosh.
Yeah, that hits too hard today.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad how it's gotten progressively more appropriate.
Yeah. You want it to be so far-fetched that it's like, okay, no one could think of it as the real world, but it becomes more and more the real world. And I think some of the themes on the album, even if they were written more from a fictional place, can become, relevant to our world. So I think that's what makes an album like this something that will stand the test of time, because people will be able to relate to it on different levels.
Yeah, I mean, this is an album that even if you had released it in the 90s, 80s or 90s, it would still be, I still think you would vibe with it. And 20 and 30, 40 years from now, you're still going to vibe with it because of the storytelling and the theme of each song. So that's a testament to good, to me at least, good writing and good putting yourself into it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great outfit, like this, just a group of people to work with. It's, I feel pretty lucky that musically, it's just very well rounded, what everybody has to bring to the table. And yeah, I mean, that's nice to think. I never, it's nice to hear you say that. I mean, I would hope it's a
Yeah.
grower in that sense where, really builds up some momentum, and we all believe in these songs. And I think if it can get enough momentum, yeah, we'd like to get out there and share it and
Yeah.
get to California, get to Oklahoma, all these places. Right?
Yeah.
I love performing live, like to sing and lose myself in a performance is,
Yeah.
it doesn't get much better than that. So
Not at all.
So when you perform live, do you create any kind of visuals for the backdrop, or you just kind of do the more standard basic stage? Because you as an artist, you could create some really stunning backdrops if you wanted to.
we've thought about it. We've talked about having visual elements more like on the video sense than like backdrops or set design. But yeah, I could go, oh man, give me a budget. I would have a heyday with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so thank you again for coming on. We've kind
Yeah,
of gone through
absolutely.
our questions, and I appreciate you being here. Love your album. It is best album of the year, and when Immortal Era, my book, gets adapted, I will be knocking on your door. I might just be knocking on it, like, hey, coming for the festival.
Absolutely. Yeah, the doorbell's broken, so you're going to have to knock.
All right.
That's
Well,
awesome.
thanks so
Yeah.
much for joining us. And if Nina finds a way to get in, we're still going to be here. We're going to talk about the album, dig into our favorite songs, our favorite lyrics. And Dash, you may as well now tell him, what is your favorite song for this one, since it's one of your top 10 of all time now?
Listen, Holly is so good. I'm listening to this thing, and I like, Oklahoma country music's one of my. I'm sitting here picturing like a kind of a darkened wasteland, but you got Johnny and June Cash singing Holly. You guys are like, I can just picture it. You guys are sitting on a stage, it's burnt out, and you're just still playing the song to people and listen, that is the most hauntingly beautiful song I have heard in a long time. And I mean, that song's on repeat now, on whether it's on my Spotify or not. It's on repeat at least 4 or 5 times in a row. So I don't know where it came from, but I loved it. It brings chills to me every time I listen to it. So that's my favorite song.
Dude, that's amazing. That's like, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless, but that's like really so sweet. I love you're connecting with it. Just awesome.
Yeah.
And you said that one was one of the ones you had written before. I guess that leads me to kind of a follow-up question.
Yeah.
With this album, did you or Nina bring certain songs already pre-created, lyrically maybe, or musically, and then just you kind of built them from there? Or were all these songs more written together on the when you were collaborating?
Small Things was a collaboration. Mostly Nina did the lyrics on that, and I just helped tinker a little bit, but that was really Nina. And Jeff had written the guitar on that, and that came together while we were out there. But Old Collapser, Holly, even the ones that were written as a group, No Shape I Know, Something for the Thrill, they were all basically, they changed things.
Yeah.
Like Werewolf, that was an odyssey. That one really was was a lot of experimentation, and got it where it needed to go. But for the most part, musically was pretty. The songs we ended up focusing on were pretty centered, and like once we got out there, it was like one song at a time, and see what's next. It's almost like we were making a mixtape while we were going along.
Mm-hmm.
We basically started with Cheyenne, and that was another collaborative one that was written, we all wrote the vocals basically while we were out there, and the guitar had been written. So that really came together in the studio as well. But outside of that, I think, it was mostly, I want to say, canned songs going on.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for joining us. I appreciate you being here, giving us
Yeah, thanks,
insight
Clint.
into this amazing album. And yeah, we'll be talking about this one again when we're doing our top 10 lists for the end of the year for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Dash. We'll see you later, guys.
Thanks.
you
Thank
later.
you. Have a good one.
You too.
All right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
now
Woo!
let's dig into this.
Great
All
interview.
right. Thank you, Clint, for
Thank you.
joining
Yeah.
us. Nina, if you're listening, we're still here. You're free to join us. I'm sorry the link was being problematic. Sometimes the internet is wonky. But now we'll kind of start with a simple one. Our history. I think this is going to be pretty small for both of us. So Dash, what's your history with this band?
You and listen, you have turned me on to some great bands, not only this year, but in years past that I've asked for recommendations to listen to. So my history is the last couple of weeks listening. I listened to it once to get some good idea because I knew they were coming on, and so I wanted to feel. But I wish I'd known this early. I wish I had known them earlier. This is another band where you kind of get you're sometimes out here you're left in the weeds sometimes, and you get tunnel vision here in Oklahoma as far as radio stations go. So I was glad that this one was introduced to me, and I appreciate that. And so that's my history. 2 weeks, and now I will probably forever have them on a playlist of some sort. Whether getting the vinyl is my next goal on this one. I did not get the vinyl for this one, but getting the vinyl and still having it. This is one where I don't even have to worry about when Spotify it's going to stay on Spotify. I don't have anything to skip. Just there's a spoiler warning right there.
Makes it easy. Yeah, I think we kind of made it known where we stand, because if we bring a band on, obviously we must like the album already. So it's going to be pretty easy to know that there's not going to be a lot that we're going to say that we wouldn't want to listen to. And that's not to say that there's going to be no skips if the band is on. There's always sometimes that you're going to have a skip or two. But for me, my history, it's still small. I mean, I saw her opening for this Japanese instrumental band Mono, which is an incredible band. We can cover one of their albums someday, but they're kind of like Godspeed You Black Emperor. They play this instrumental post-rock, and they were produced by Steve Albini as well. And Nina Nastasia was the opener when I saw them. And she opened with the Murder Ballad, and I just loved it. I loved her set. And honestly, after it, I didn't think that much of it. But every week I listen to the NPR podcast that's called All Songs Considered. And they talk about the top 5 releases of the week. Yeah. And I remember this album was the one they were talking about, and they were playing little clips. I'm like, holy shit, what is this? This is really good. So I immediately stopped the podcast, went over, put the album on, and have been playing it in repeat ever since. Like, good Lord, where was this album? Like, I hadn't heard the first one at that point. I have since heard the first one. I love the first one. I think this one with the more duets and collaboration and harmonizing, I like better, but they're both really good albums. And up until that NPR, I knew Nina, but I didn't know of Jolie Laide, and then discovered them just, like I said, just through NPR. And I found so many bands that I end up loving just by listening to that NPR podcast. And it's every Friday. They go through 5 good albums, and sometimes it's like, all right, here's 5 new jazz albums, and you're kind of losing me, but I always give them a shot, because I have found some of my favorite bands. Like when we covered Mr. Gnome, I discovered them through the NPR podcast as well, because I honestly would have had no idea who they were if it weren't for listening to that NPR podcast. Same thing. They're playing little clips. I'm like, okay, I'll listen to the rest of this later. I got to hear this album because damn, this is some beautiful noise coming out. So yeah, that's how I found them. And then I messaged them on Instagram, and that's when they agreed to come on. But whether they had agreed to come on or not, I would still say this is my top album of the year so far. Now, granted, there's more year left. Something might, surpass it, but
now this is already
other bands. It's your turn. Let's see what you got, because this one is it's way up there. So it's like it's top tier. Other bands need to step their game up if they want to try to surpass this one. So it sits at my number one spot right now, which I guess kind of overall view we're giving that away. But yeah, small history, but now I feel like I've been listening to them forever just because I played this album so much. So what are your overall thoughts? I think we kind of know, but may as well just say it.
This opens with Cheyenne. You're just immediately drawn in with Nina's voice, and then and Clint, and you're going. You're just off and running. It's nothing is we're not listening to upbeat and for the most part you're not jamming out or anything, but you're right on a trajectory, and it just continues. And he brought it up, and you brought it up, the sequencing of every song was perfect in this.
Yeah,
and at no point are you ever, for me, at no point am I ever gotta finish this song, because we've had some Joe Walsh. Well, I'll go back to Joe Walsh and I'll go back to Kate Bush. There's times where I'm just like, get through the song, but you're just the first listen through, you're just like, all right, I'm loving it. And then my second playthrough, and even on my walk today, again today, just to give myself another, once again, refresher of it. Mm-hmm. You're lost. And I'm on my walk, and I'm lost in this album, and I don't even, by the time I'm done with my walk, I'm like, man, I could just flip it back on and go for another walk, because you're lost in it. So everything about this, the sequencing, the harmonizing, just, I love it. And so this is rarely does a 5-star A++ album come along, but this is one of them. So that's overall, I will request this to anybody from, when somebody on in my family or somebody on social media goes, what's a good album to listen to? This is going to be one of the first ones I drop.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's just, overall thoughts are easy. From the moment I was hearing snippets of the song, I knew that it was my vibe. I mean, it's just kind of, I love that Western Gothic feel. And I love that they throw it out at certain points. Like, okay, you have this Western Gothic vibe going for the first 3 songs. And then here you got these, dark 80s synth lines going on, and it just switches things up. And that's not a bad thing. It kind of like, oh, wow, that just shook up the whole flow of this, where it was going to feel like, okay, we got this post-apocalyptic Western vibe going, and now it's just switched it up, and that song starts with those kind of Stranger Things 80s dark synth, and then it turns into this big banger of a rock song. So it kind of takes you all over the place. But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. So let's go to the category now. What are the best songs? Like, I know it was hard to just not say the album, because we gotta be diplomatic here and give some reasons. But I'll go where you started too, with Cheyenne. It's just, it establishes the album and the vibe so perfect. You got that hopelessness, that post-apocalyptic, rescue ship feeling. So what you're getting. You're going to have this beautiful vibe, but it's not going to be a peaceful journey. So I'll start with that one. So what's one that you would pick?
Holly. I mean, Holly's so, again, I meant it when I said if my first book ever became a movie, which I think it's a testament to any album when you can say, I want this on a movie, because you want other people to hear it. And while I'm not post-apocalyptic, I am supernatural horror Western. you can still hear the song. I'm sitting there, like I said, I'm sitting there picturing my book as I'm walking, and these songs are going along with it. And I was, and Holly, again, you can just picture them sitting out in a burnout or an old time Westerny stage, broken down, but they're just playing it because they love this song. So Holly's my tops on this album. While again, I don't want to take anything away from the rest of the album, because every other song I could say best song, album done, and we could walk away from this thing. But Holly, God, and then Murder Ballad, going from Holly to Murder Ballad, you're right in there again. You're on this trip with my characters, and I'm going to keep referring to my book, because not because I'm trying to sell it or anything, but it's what I associate it with. And then you nailed it. You said it. You're like, Old Collapser should have ended, but Saw the Wave, man. This is an ender, and so
yeah, you think Old Collapser is the perfect closing song, and then another song comes on, and you're just like, okay, well, that's not going to work. And then all of a sudden, you realize they know better than we do. Like I said when Clint was in here, it's like, you know what? We realize they're the professional musicians, and they know what they're doing, and they sequenced it beautifully. So yeah, I would go definitely. Holly would have been on my list. Another one. I loved the final three songs. I think that they really just worked in such a perfect sequence. So you have Small Things, which is just this bleak electronic song that's telling this dark, and all these stories are so grim. And then it kind of closes with a bit of optimism that kind of builds through the next couple songs. But yeah, Old Collapser, I had it turned up so loud it was shaking the walls when it hit the part where they started kind of back and forthing, and that bass drum just kicks in so hard. So yeah, Old Collapser was one that I loved as well. And then just closing it out with Saw the Wave. It's just a perfect 3-song sequence.
If they're still watching, great. This, I just want to say, best song is the album, and I'm gonna live with that. But Holly, like I said, Holly makes my one of my top 10 all time favorite songs now. But I could make there's 10 songs on this album, and I could literally sit here and make an argument for every song being in my top 10 now, because you are, there's, you get emotionally attached in a way, whether it's, I'm not mean crying or anything, but I mean, you're feeling this album. And it's hard to, I think most people know what I'm saying, but you're feeling this album. You're feeling every song. You're part of their world now, part of this world when you're listening to it. So I think, again, that's a testament, even the great Michael Jackson or some of them, you can't say that you're invested in every song on Thriller. You can't say you're invested in every song. Maybe Purple Rain might be the closest where you're invested in every song on Purple Rain, and this is right up there with that. If that means anything to anybody, that's what I get when I can sit there and say Purple Rain is one of my top 10 albums of all time. This is right up there with Purple Rain as far as being connected to almost every song.
Yeah. I would agree. It's strong. So let's pull out some lyrics. What are some lyrics that stood out to you on this one?
Where do I start? No, I picked two because, again, this is one of those albums where I can sit there and go every lyric, every song, but let me start with Holly. Where did it go? Where's all my stuff at here? There we go. He said, Holly, where'd you get your name? I just, and this opens up, and you're feeling the country ballad. You're feeling you got Johnny and June Carter Cash sitting there singing this, or Clint and Nina, and Holly, where'd you get your name? Holly, where'd you get that long brown hair? You just know that there's feeling behind each and every word that he's asking her this question.
Mm-hmm.
And then she comes, what he's like, was it Memphis? Was it, was it Memphis? Was it in Fresno? It wasn't Fresno. It was in Memphis. I love the back and forth.
Yeah.
It's not, some people are looking for, essays and things like that. But this is poetry. It's simple poetry to me. And I don't mean that in a negative light. I mean, you could bring out so much emotion and so much feeling in just these words. And then my other one is, come on, you really got. Is that the name? Yeah. Is it? What's the name of that song? I'll think of it here again. No. Where's it at? I lost my notes because I've got so many. Something for the thrill.
Okay.
That's a good song. Something for a thrill. There it is. There's my notes. Every time those horses bite, they get me on the ass.
Yeah.
That's Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma Western. Tell me you can't give me something for the thrill. Shit rolls uphill. I've seen the flashy. I just love the way that song started. How many songs can you say are talking about a horse biting you on the ass? And it's such a good song. I love the way that's set up. You go into Father Time revving up his motorbike, hitting with the head of steam. No joy. They throw you to the floor. That's how they got me. I just love that whole entire song. Again, I could, because I'm sure you're going to bring up the other ones, but I could bring lyrics from Werewolf and Murder Ballad, Cheyenne. I mean, Cheyenne drops that first line, just drops you in Cheyenne. So
yeah.
I don't know. I loved every song.
So I'll go with Murder Ballad. I'll pick that one. I do love in Cheyenne, just a quick one, that there's no rescue ship. We stopped calling out for it. And the way they just kind of keep singing that it's so good. But I love Murder Ballads. We talked about it. We've had a couple that have come up, and that's something I'm always a sucker for, a good one. And this one gets so dark where he murders her, she's buried, and then she's threatening him with she's going to go after his children. So she says, "Come find me, my love, or I will call to your children. It's been many years now, 'neath the rocks I lay dying. I'll take your small crew down the river to swim. I won't let you know, and their end will be grim." I'm like, ooh, that is mean murder ballad lyrics. And the good murder ballads are always really dark and really mean. And that's reminding me of, like, this could have been thrown on the Nick Cave Murder Ballads album, and it would have fit right in if she had, instead of Clint, she's duetting with Nick Cave, and it would have been a perfect fit. So, it works out. It's a beautiful one. I like Dalton, where he said, "They're selling something I don't need, stuck inside the Holocene. They're only restless nights, only peaceful and day night. And then thought I was awake, thought I was going home, thought I saw spirits, only smoke." So I love that. So let's see. In Small Things, where it says, "Fields go gray, every color escapes, falling ash and debris. I can't move my hands or my feet. I'm locked in with barely a beat, tunnel vision, polluted and weak." And then they're just, "I don't know my way out of here. I want to find my way back to you." And then all this song is just the sweltering darkness, but it ends with "Forward and high, blues in the clear blue sky." So it's closing with a little bit of optimism. Like, maybe the skies aren't going to be gray and destroyed anymore, and there's a little peak of blue that's coming through to save the day.
Small Things. There's again, I hate bringing in my book, but there's a part where Colt sees his wife in ghost form, and that's what Small Things reminds me of. It's he's in a place, and when she finally, he's dark, and then it comes when he sees her, it ends up light, and Small Things fits that. I mean, that's where I would play that song in that part of the movie, because I think, again, that's the tone that I set when I wrote this book.
Yeah.
And man, yeah, Small Things is, it's hard to say, man. It's just such a good song. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Old Collapser, the lyrics he talked about were, have you seen enough bullets and blood? Give me some love. And the way it's kind of just yelled out is just, it's so powerful.
Yeah,
and
powerful.
In the context of the story, it's powerful. In the context of the
Real
current
world.
state of events in the world, it's just, it just rings true and powerful and just shakes you. And this is the kind of album that just leaves you just shaken. And that's a beautiful thing. It's kind of like when we listen to Songs of a Lost World from The Cure, and you're just taken in this journey of aging and loss and sorrow and all of these emotions that Robert Smith is feeling throughout the album. And you finish it and you're just like, oh my gosh, my hands are shaking. I'm feeling this wave of emotion. This album hits you in the same way. And that's where we go to the last song, Saw the Wave. And it's ash, dust, and bone in the creek, ash, dust, and bone in the breeze, ash, dust, and bone in the creek. But then they start singing, but not anymore. And they start just harmonizing this beautiful thing. So it's like, okay, all these terrible things, not anymore. So you get this, this little shimmer of optimism in the close of the album that's just taking you on a ride in the most beautiful way. So, much like The Cure did it when we listened to it, and, some of these albums that have more emotional connected themes where it's not just, a group of songs. Like, you throw 38 Special in there. Here's just a bunch of songs. Some are good, some are bad, but it's no cohesion. When you have a cohesive piece and it ends on such a powerful way, that's how you know an album's good. When you're sitting on the couch, like, I need to stay sitting for a couple minutes because that shit just knocked me over. And that's the sign of the best albums right there.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, listen, it's a good album to really just reflect.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I'm not. I mean, if you want to reflect, this is a good album to do it. And so, and I probably will be talking about this album for weeks to come.
Yeah.
That's how. I mean, I'm one of those guys when it's like a shiny new toy.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one that as you can see, I have shiny new toys on my shelf behind me. This is one that will go on display. It will be
shiny new actual toys. Yeah. Get your green vinyl straight from Canada. Handwritten on the label, so it's like, all right, they're doing it the indie way, and I gotta love that too. As someone who's getting ready to launch another Kickstarter, and I'm going to be mailing out stacks of packages and thank you cards and everything like I do. It's like I love that do-it-yourself mentality when a band, it's not Warner Brothers, mass packaging things. It's like, nope. Hand packaged by the band, handwritten by the band for your address. And you just got to love when they do it that way. And then the topic, we're talking about Jolie Laide's Creature, the album. It is an amazing album. Do go listen to it. You will not regret it. We've been gushing over it. We had Clint from the band in here earlier, so definitely watch the replay when we're done. You can hear that interview. We had a little bit of difficulty with Nina getting in, but that's okay. Clint was great. He was gracious, answered all the questions, and I'm sure Nina might have a different perspective on some of these, but when it comes down to it, we are so lucky that the band of an album that we both just grew to love so quickly. I mean, it didn't take me long for this to just drop into my constant rotation, that they were willing to give us their time. So, I mean, I can't say how much I appreciate that. That's 2 weeks in a row with two amazing albums that we
Amazing
got to
bands,
actually dig into the creative process, because it's different. I mean, I think everyone wishes they had a different skill, and I'm like, oh, man, if I could be a musician, that'd be the greatest. But then you got someone who might think, if I could write a book, that would be the greatest. So everyone wants a skill, but it's just, I love that people are spreading their creativity, and they're not doing it because they're going to get played on all the big radio stations and get, truckloads of cash like Taylor Swift. They're doing it because they love the music, and you can feel that. So yes, let's hit the easiest of all categories. Keep it or return it to the used bin. I think we know where we're going with that one.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Too easy.
Yeah. Am I road tripping to Calgary to go knock on Clint's door? Who knows? It's like, all right, I love this album. I really hope they get to Southern California and to Oklahoma. Like, get to both places, because I would love to see this album performed live. I can imagine it would just be one of those chill-inducing moments when you watch those two doing their back and forth, doing their harmonizing in person, because some of my favorite concerts are the ones where the artists can really harmonize beautifully. There's something that is unbelievably amazing about that. So yeah, I think this is going to go into my, like I said, easily, it'll be in the top 5 for the best of the year. But at this point, it's going to be hard to dethrone it at number 1. Some of these songs are going to easily be in the top 5 songs of the year. Will they get dethroned at number 1? We will see, because it's just that good. And don't take our word for it. You go out and listen to the album and come and try to tell us that we're lying, because that's my dare. Like, listen to this album, and we will, definitely. Just give me a second. I will type it. So you wanted me to say it in the chat. So here we go. It is Jolie Laide, Creatures. And yeah, you will definitely enjoy this one if you like that genre. I mean, it's kind of Western Gothic with electronica, and then just some like hard rocking, almost grunge in there too. So it's got a little bit of everything. If any of those things appeal to you, you're going to be right here for it. So now, all right, keep it or return to the used bin. We're keeping it. We're putting it in our top 10. So next week, I pull the album for next week, and that there is no next week.
There is no next week.
Next week, it will be vacation and a cruise ship, and I will probably still be playing this album. So next week, no show, but in 2 weeks we'll be doing Bruce Springsteen, Darkness on the Edge of Town. Let me just pull a picture up of it real quick, and I will share it. So here we go. So 1 second, just downloaded the image. Hopefully it's clear, but if it's not, you'll get the point. So Bruce Springsteen, Darkness at the Edge of Town. That will be our next one. That is another one of our recommendations that comes from Grant Lankard. I'm hoping I can get him in to come and talk about it, tell us why he picked it. It won't be new to him, obviously, but I'd love to hear his insight into this album. So there we go. Darkness on the Edge of Town, Bruce Springsteen. I've never played a Bruce Springsteen album in its entirety. So, yeah, please check them out tonight. You won't regret it. Jolie Laide, Creatures. It is on Spotify, so you can get it there. And if you like it, buy the vinyl, because Spotify pays artists garbage. Spotify's to musicians like Amazon is to authors. They don't pay them what they deserve. They pay them pennies to the dollar. Buy the vinyl, that goes straight into the hands of the artist. Go on to any one of their platforms. You can buy the album directly. Buy the digital copies. It's $5, I think, for the digital copy, and put the money into the hands of the band. So next week, in 2 weeks, we'll be covering Bruce Springsteen, and then we picked our next batch of 8 albums. We have some good ones coming up. any of those albums might get interrupted if we have another band. I've reached out to multiple bands. Hopefully one of them gets back to us. And if not, then Dash and I have some good picks coming.
Yeah, we got some good picks.
So it's gonna be a fun 8 weeks. We're gonna get into our first few rap albums. We've been ignoring that genre, and the time has come to bring rap into the mix. So we have two rap albums that we'll be covering in our next sequence.
We got a mixture. We got rap, we got country, we got a little bit of 80s pop,
80s,
I guess.
We got some rock from. We got some rock. We got like 60s. So yeah, you know my feelings about the 70s, but my feelings about the 60s are not the same. I love 60s music. 70s, we know where I stand, but yeah.
I spared you. I spared you the 70s this go around. I spared you. We got.
We're doing the rap albums. We're going to be doing Paul's Boutique from the Beastie Boys, and I gotta look because I don't remember. It's Tribe Called Quest, and it's one of the rare Perfect Tens from Pitchfork, and it's a long album title, and I'm blanking out on it. But that's because we haven't really put anything together yet. So it is Tribe Called Quest, People's Instinctive Travels and the Paths of Rhythm. So when they'll be, I don't know. Keep your eye out. And yeah, they're
definitely oldies.
And if you have a recommendation, put it in there. This batch, we're skipping the recommendations because this particular round was all recommended by people except for the two, Bear vs. Shark and Jolie Laide, where we had the band in here. Those ones were picked more just because I love the albums and we got a chance to actually talk with the people that created them. But the rest of the round was all other people's picks. So Dash and I are putting the power back in our own hands for a minute, and then drop your suggestions. They're not ignored. They'll be incorporated in little by little. We won't do a whole round of suggestions because otherwise we won't get to pick what we want to hear ourselves. So it'll be suggestion and then our stuff. So yeah, tune in. Next few weeks we'll be hitting a lot of good stuff. But next week we'll be hitting nothing besides the cruise ship. So I won't be paying for their overpriced internet to broadcast from a tiny cruise ship room. So I will be disappearing because if I did that, my wife would probably strangle me, and I would be the new Jack floating overboard without a raft. All right.
I'll never let go, Jack. I'll never let go.
Yeah, she's like, I will let go, you dumbass. You're on the internet trying to do a show on our vacation. Learn to swim, Jack. Learn to swim. All right. So let's check out a few of our sponsors, and then we will wrap things up for today. So here we go. So they have made a suggestion: Misfits, Famous Monsters. So I actually had a punk in a punk album, an old school punk album that we didn't cover yet. So I have to bring that one in, and when we get to our next round. So yes, it will get added to our list. Dash keeps track of the list of suggestions that we have. We have, I think, probably about like 5 right now. So
5, yeah.
It'll be a while, but if you suggest it, please tune in when we actually cover it. So that way you can let us know your thoughts, since it's one that you want us to cover. Tell us if we're right. Tell us if we're wrong. Sometimes we are wrong, but today
sometimes we are wrong.
This album out. So, all right, next sponsor ad. Here we go. So our final one of the day. I kicked myself out, but I guess it was good if I accidentally kicked myself out during an ad break. So here we go. Final ad of the day. Let's check it out.
It's Flip City Magazine, The Parodies, Special Edition, with savage send-ups of The Walking Dead, Star Trek Picard, Stranger Things, The Mandalorian, Guardians of the Galaxy, and more from the first 4 years of Flip City. Get Flip City The Parodies free when you subscribe in print at flipcitymag.com. The world's best satire magazine, and never, ever woke.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We will be back in 2 weeks and covering some Bruce Springsteen. So it should be fun. Tune in 2 weeks. And until then, have a great rest of your week.
No, not tonight, because I've already been in that.